Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Mayor's Corner. I'm Jim Brown, Mayor of Cedar Falls, and today's program is one that's close to my heart. I'll be interviewing 3 Cedar Falls police officers. As you might know, this is close to my heart because my father and my uncle are both retired police officers. So I'm excited for this portion and this program of the Mayor's Corner. With me today, I've got Lieutenant Smith, Officer Ferguson, and Officer Devich. Thanks to all 3 of you for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
Let's just start and get right into it. Lieutenant Smith, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a graduate of Cedar Falls High School in 2000, and I immediately went into getting training in police science through Hawkeye Community College. During that time, I worked for a couple of volunteer police departments to get some training and experience. And I got my first full-time police job in LaPorte City, where I spent 3 years. Also during my time there, I got on the fire and rescue for LaPorte City. Spent several years on the ambulance and as a firefighter there. Since coming to Cedar Falls in 2005, I've been involved with the field training officer program. I'm a bike patrol officer, firearms instructor, first aid, CPR instructor as well, and I'm a member of our major incident response team. Since coming here, I went back and got my bachelor's in business administration, and I'm currently assigned to the field training unit for both police and fire.
Fantastic. So is it safe to say if something happens in Cedar Falls, we want this guy on the scene, right? Thank you for doing what you do. Now, recently, you accepted the position of public safety training officer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so, can you give us a brief description what that entails, what you'll be doing differently, how that might fit into the overall goal of the city towards a public safety officer structure?
Yeah, you know, recently we had somebody at the fire department and someone at the police department kind of overseeing, arranging training. Plus they were doing their normal job also. So they were still responsible for responding to their calls and doing their administrative tasks. And with the direction that we're going for cross-training police officers as firemen, we felt the need to have somebody oversee both sides of that and to be able to document and get together training for both police and fire, making it more of a full-time needed commitment than having 2 kind of people working on training part-time.
Sure. So the expectation isn't that, in essence, you don't know everything, but you'll be help coordinating, you'll be doing the training of the expertise you have or the certifications you might have, and that overall coordination is a big piece of what you're doing. Is that correct? Fair to say?
That is correct. You know, using the experts that have been trained in certain fields with both police and fire, and you know, if you have to coordinate something on the outside, you know, helping with that process, and just getting the right people in the right place to do the good documentation and, you know, getting us good quality training.
And is part of the position itself to gain some efficiencies as well? In other words, what most folks may not realize is there's various shifts involved with both police and fire, and so you almost have to herd cats a little bit, I'm presuming, to line things up, and then we have the overall benefit of those trainings for everybody involved in the least amount of time.
Correct. Yeah, you know, that's what was the challenge of people overseeing the training part-time. You know, and you just want, especially on the law enforcement side, having good documentation of, you know, training for liability or any, you know, legal actions, you know, being able to pull those training files and, you know, have everything documented in that fashion, and just having one person kind of detailing that and making sure everything's getting done right.
While you're doing this training, are you still on the street? Does your schedule allow you to still do what you were doing prior? Is it a mixture, or are you really just full-time on the training side right now?
Full-time on the training side. You know, staffing, you know, with illnesses and stuff, and I would need to fill in, I'd be more than happy to do that. I haven't had to do that yet, but that's a possibility.
So some flexibility there in terms of fulfilling some needs that might pop up.
Yes, there is.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, next, I'm going to move over to Officer Ferguson. This is exciting for me because we just did the swearing in maybe a few weeks ago, a couple months ago.
Yep.
What's been going on since that swearing in?
Well, I had a lot of training.
Okay.
A lot of learning the streets, learning how things work here in Cedar Falls. I started my police career in Iowa Falls, so just learning the different techniques on how to do things here in Cedar Falls.
Is there much difference? Is there an overarching similarity, but then there's differences because it's just 2 different types of cities?
Probably more similarities than differences, but I would say being the size volume of the city, it's the biggest difference for me.
Okay, okay. And tell us a little bit about yourself then. You just mentioned something briefly, but a little bit more, maybe your background, education.
Okay, I went to Hawkeye Community College after high school in 2010. When I got there, I went to a police science program that took 2 years. I then got on with the Iowa Falls Police Department. During that time, I continued my education, got my bachelor's degree from Upper Iowa University. So I've been on the street for 2 years, 2.5 years now total.
What was the draw for you to be a police officer?
I would say just helping the community is always the first answer that comes to my mind, and then also a job that brings physical traits also. I enjoy working out and staying fit in my profession. So,
any surprises for your short time here in Cedar Falls so far?
No, in the 1 month I've been on the streets, no surprises yet.
It's a pretty good city, isn't it?
It's a great city, yes.
That was a leading question. As far as schedule, are you getting used to that? You were probably used to that where you were in LaPorte City in terms of how you get directed to where you go when you work, and then maybe shifting that out after a period of time.
Yep, in Iowa Falls it's about the same, about the same schedule. Shift work, holidays, weekends. I'm used to it, and the family's used to it as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for your service.
Yep.
Finally, I'll introduce Officer Devich. Thanks for being here this morning as well with the other two officers. So this again, as I thought through inviting all three of you, but it's the instance of Lieutenant Smith. I met you initially with my ride-along that we did. I think when you and I started, so in the fall, and then the swearing in with you, Officer Ferguson, and with you, it was one of the first swear-ins I think I had as the new mayor about a year ago. So tell us how it's going with you.
It's going really well. I'm in my 3rd phase of field training, so I have a couple more weeks left of that. It's going really well. We have an awesome field training program. I'm sure my field trainers can say I stress them out a little bit, but you know what? It's all part of the learning experience, so it's going really well.
And explain the field training for folks that may not know what
Okay,
that is
so
for Cedar Falls and what we do.
There's 3 phases, well, 4 including the shadow phase. The first phase, it's kind of like a step-by-step progression. First phase, you're expected to do 25 to 50% of the work. Second phase, 75% of the work. And then by 3rd phase, you should be doing about 90% of the work with that field training officer as kind of your safety net if you have any questions. And then your 4th phase is a 10-day shadow phase where an officer will sit next to you in civilian clothing, and they'll pretty much just watch everything you do and make sure you're doing everything the right way.
Sure, sure. Do you feel sometimes under the microscope?
Yeah.
Do both of you, the new folks here, maybe a little more stressful because there's that, you're kind of being evaluated as you go?
Yeah, it is a stressful time, but it's all part of it, and it's an important part of the job as well.
Sure.
It is. And I've realized that the more and more you go into each phase, you get a little more and more obviously exposed to things, and you expect to do more of the work, so you're a little more stressed out, but that's okay. It's all part of the process, just like Officer Ferguson said.
Sure, absolutely. And so, Officer Devich, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so kind of a unique story. I came to the United States when I was 5 years old. Prior to that, we lived in a refugee camp until I was 5, and then we moved to Iowa, my family and I. My parents just wanted a better life for my sister and I, and so I went to West High School where I was a graduate in 2012, and then I graduated from UNI in 2016 with my bachelor's degree, and then shortly after I applied to the Cedar Falls Police Department, and I was hired, went to the training academy in Des Moines for 4 months, and then started field training mid-December, and here I am.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great story. And what was the draw to get involved with police work? Even now, I love coming to work knowing every day there's something different. I get to experience, I guess, every shift you deal with something different, and I think it's kind of unique how we rotate shifts here for 2nd and 3rd because you get exposed to something different every shift, and the community members definitely as well. We have a great community here in Cedar Falls, so. We do. That's great. And so both of the newer folks, the newer officers, is there anything you're looking forward to in the future the most, or anything that can stand out that you're looking forward to, whether it's a year from now or 20 years from now, based on your recent experiences here?
I'm looking forward into maybe getting into the investigative side. By chance. That's a branch that they have here that I could get into eventually. But as of right now, I'm just ready to be kind of solo patrol and kind of get out there and do the police work.
Sure. How about you, Officer Devich?
Well, never being a fairly new officer, I'm looking to get my feet wet first for a couple years, and then hopefully do things like bike patrol investigations,
Sure.
Yep, whatever opportunities arise.
Great. Lieutenant Smith, when you got involved, you were obviously early in your career once.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any sort of advice you give? You probably give it all the time, just because your rank.
Right.
But is there any sort of advice moving forward for these two newer folks to service?
You know, I just say that, you know, they're always in the eyes of, you know, everybody they're dealing with, and to, you know, work hard and stay away from the negative influences and stay on the positive track, and it'll work out for them.
That sounds great. Thank you all three. It's been a pleasure interviewing each one of you, kind of a conversation here. Thanks for your service to our city as well.
Thank you,
It is greatly, greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
This wraps up this last edition of the Mayor's Corner, and thank you for joining us this morning, and God bless.